How's it going, beeps and boops? Welcome to another exciting episode of Bot Talk. I'm your host, David Borman. Let's jump right into the markets. We got Bitcoin hovering still above 8,000 right now at about 8,200. Kind of testing in this descending range here. You can see that I've defined. It looks like we're not able. We're having a descending channel, so we're not able to test up to this 200-day moving average currently. I thought that might provide an upper end on it, but it actually is a little bit lower end than that. We still have some support coming in at about 8,000, though we've tested below it a couple of times now. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but this is kind of defining like kind of a wedge here, and so it's going to have to break out eventually. So if we break down, watch for a solid break below 8,000. We've done that before, though, so I think we pretty much have to break all the way down to about 7,600 or lower for it to be a confirmed like we're breaking down. Watch for that, or we could, especially because we do have we had a bullish crossover on the MACD here. It's not really showing that it is ready yet to break above about 8,200, but if it does, we could have a quick run up to about 8,600 when we hit this 200-day moving average. Watch for that. That would be fairly bullish. Then, of course, we're going to have to break up to about 9,000 psychological, and we've got more at about 9.5 with the Fibonacci level. So we've got our work cut out for us if we want to get back up, but it's totally possible. Starting with watch for a solid break out of this channel, probably well above about 8,200. To see if that's going to even start. So yeah, that's about it for Bitcoin. However, I do want to talk about some of the other altcoins right now. At a glance, there's a few coins like Chainlink, Tron, that are doing fairly well. Even Ripple's showing a nice little bump now. There's some that are kind of moving away from trending with Bitcoin, but also several that are trending along with Bitcoin roughly sideways. Ethereum, Litecoin, that sort of thing. Ethereum Classic, Binance Coin. Overall, though, and it doesn't show that well on here, but if you look at the dominance, we are seeing a consistent, slow but steady drop in Bitcoin dominance. We're down to about 66.6%. So if this can carry on, we might be seeing a slow shift. I've talked about in previous videos, going kind of back a ways, how we might not see an altcoin rally where it's like Bitcoin jumps up and then Bitcoin crashes and all the altcoins jump up and it's crazy like in 2017. We might see a little bit of a difference. Some coins do better than others. Some coins don't really respond to a rally. Other coins do well, and it's not necessarily the same ones that did last time. You can kind of see that happening. I think that might be what's happening, but it's happening slowly. We're not seeing a crazy shift, but we are seeing a shift. Bitcoin dominance is dropping. Some of the alts are starting to outperform it. I'd watch this very closely, especially if you're an altcoin trader in general. This could be the beginning of what we're looking for, but watch for maybe a more sideways dominance action where like maybe we don't quite have that huge shift. We just kind of level off and go up and down between like 65 and 70% with Bitcoin. That could also happen. But if this is the beginning of an altcoin rally, it would look kind of like this. So keep a close eye on that. All right, let's check out a few news stories. Here we have CoinDesk talking about the Lightning Network. We've talked about this before on here. Lightning Network is a second layer solution that sits on top of the Bitcoin network, for those of you that don't know. Basically, it makes transactions faster and cheaper, and it fulfills the hope of Bitcoin that it could be used as like everyday transactional cash as opposed to just a store of value. But Lightning Network is still a very in-test type of technology. It's still like rough. This article is talking about how we're seeing a drop, like kind of like first a leveling off and then a drop in the adoption of the Lightning Network. Well, really what it is a capacity, like how much Bitcoin is being held on the Lightning Network. In this chart here, you can see how it was rising fairly quickly, and then it kind of leveled off and even shrunk a bit over the last like half a year or so. And the article is basically saying that's not necessarily a bad thing. You're probably seeing a few things happen here. One, you're seeing an increase in people using private addresses on the Lightning Network. Basically, you don't have to publicly advertise your channel, was what they're called. The channel is where you keep your Bitcoin that can be used to send transactions quickly and cheaply. More people are using private channels because if you're not using it for specific relays, you don't really need a public channel. So people are realizing that more and using that more. That's one. Two, look how it correlates to the rise in the price of Bitcoin over roughly the same time period. Basically, this is charting how much Bitcoin is held on the Lightning Network. Well, as the value of Bitcoin has risen, people don't need as much Bitcoin on the network. So you could argue there's more value on the network, just not as much actual Bitcoin. And the third reason is just it's becoming more efficient. People are shutting down channels that weren't being used very much. And so the channels that are getting used are used more effectively and efficiently, and like excess channels that are just sitting there with Bitcoin on them are getting closed. So it looks like there's less Bitcoin on the network, but it's not really meaning that there's not still an increase in adoption. I think the Lightning Network's a very interesting technology. That's why I bring it up here a lot. I'd like to see more adoption of it. I'd like to see more use. I would love to see Bitcoin used as more of a daily currency. However, I also keep the door open for other cryptos fulfilling that dream, or an ecosystem of cryptos. Gun to my head, that's what I think is most likely, is an ecosystem of currencies that eventually become the new standard. But we'll see. Moving on to more of a technological thing. Speaking of robot suits, I was last week. Here's a, kind of a flying Iron Man, more like War Machine suit that a dude built. And this article is also talking about how that's not a real rifle. It's I think it says in here it's like a air rifle. But kind of pointing out that this could be adapted for military technology, which, I mean, it's kind of tongue in cheek if you read this article. He's not like literally selling it to the military or anything, but showing that it's like something that could be done. The actual rifle is controlled by the helmet. You can kind of see it in the video there. I think this is the realm I was talking about before, where it's both so exciting and so horrifying. The last robot suit I was talking about was actually to give people the power of walking who could not walk. This is to, well, fly and probably shoot people. It's going to be really surreal in a little while when, like, war really is like a video game, when we're, like, seeing flying guys and robots on the battlefield and stuff. I don't know. That's kind of insane. Here in Bot Talk, we're anti-war, but we are pro-robots, and it seems like as humans, we can't separate our robots from our war. So we're also not anti-war in a preachy way. We accept war as part of the human race and part of the human condition. We just don't advocate for it. Anyway, so just keep an eye on what this kind of technology leads to. It's going to be interesting living in another decade or so when we're literally... I have this theory that we're kind of living in a 90s movie. Because follow me here, that 90s movies took place in the not-too-distant future. Insane cartoonish men were running the world, and war had way cooler technology to make really cinematic stuff happen, like robots and flying around. And that's kind of all the stuff that's happening now. So on that note, I don't want to get too political or real, but this is tying into the fact that there are worries of more war in the Middle East, which has been going on forever. I mean, this is a more complex story about what's going on with Turkey, Syria, and and the U.S. government. I want to speak globally to people. I am a U.S. citizen. It's a little complicated. I would recommend digging in, but it's more something to watch. It's concerning about more saber rattling in the Middle East, issues of terrorism and claims of terrorism and countries not liking other countries. I'm not here to get into that in depth. I'm here to kind of point to that it's always worth watching what's happening on a global stage. And you should be concerned about this. I'm concerned about this. So we'll see how this plays out. Okay, that should wrap it up for me today. I should be back on Thursday with more crypto news and general information and anything else I feel like talking about. So check in with that. Until next time, stay awesome and help me build this robot revolution.